Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope everybody had a good week and is glad it's the weekend. I know I am. I took yesterday off, got a few things done, not as much as I'd like to have gotten done, but enough. And of course, tomorrow's the Fall into the Holidays event, so I'm super excited. You should have received an email about that if you are a participant for that. Just kind of waiting for things to catch up here. Okay, so hello, Pam. How are you? I'm just kind of mixing everything up here. Just waiting for some people to catch up and catch in. I'm using some sparkle stuff tonight, so I want to make sure everything's kind of mixed up good. Got some couple of cards we're going to make tonight. We're going to get right at it in just a minute here. All right, that's probably good. That'll work. All right, I'm going to switch over to my camera, my down camera. I got all sorts of goodies for us to play with tonight. Come on, switch around. Why are you not? Hi, Elizabeth. Okay, why are you not? There we go. It's being done. Okay, so I have a very small bundle tonight on the website. I believe it's the Alabaster Glitter Glaze, I don't remember exactly what was all in it. I think it was the Magenta Sparkle, the Red Shimmer Pigment, and the Forever Yours Paper Pad. Hi, Karen. Hi, Kate. Hi, Shirley. So it's just a little bundle, a little bit older things. I'm going to mix that with some new things. Tonight we're going to use the Scoops of the Season. I already have it stamped out. We're going to use the Slideshow base in the Slideshow Frozen Treats stencil. I am going to throw in a Scoop of Kindness. Hi, Luann. And then the Strawberry Sparkle Embossing Powder. And then I've got some inks and little things like that. So let's dive right in. We are going to make this card first. This is our first card. Okay. I was going to say, I think I've seen you before on our lives before. I know I can't remember your first name, though. I'm pretty sure I know. But I apologize. I'm really bad with names. This is our first card. I've kind of been obsessed with this like bridge card lately. I made one for the Stamptember set, and I decided I have to make another one. Hi, Jamie. It's so easy. However, I think we're going to change it up a little bit and make this a gift card holder, and I'll show you how. But this is the card we're going to make first. And then the second card we're going to make is a slimline card, and it's going to be this one. Okay, so let's get started. First thing we got to do is do some watercoloring. So I use the Scoops of the Seasons. If you were able to get our Stamptember set, you might want to pop over and get our Scoops of the Seasons because it matches. Well, I mean, it coordinates well with it. It has some spring release and Valentine's Day. Hi, Valencia. And it has another type of cone. If you were not able to get our Stamptember release, pop over, you can get this. And then some of the other little add-ons like this one, a Scoop of Kindness, which has just some ice cream. And then, of course, there's the other one that is called Sweet Summer Toppings that has another ice cream cone and some toppings for your ice cream. I think this is fun. I can't wait to play with it. I haven't played with this much. You're going to have to forgive me. One of our kids is stopping by, so my dog is going to bark. He sees him coming, so he's super excited. So hopefully he's not too loud for you guys. And I don't think he brought his dog with. It didn't look like it. Anyway, I already stamped this out on some aqua pigment paper, and I heat embossed it with icicle. And then I used the cut file to cut it out. Okay, we're gonna do some very basic watercoloring. I'm gonna go ahead and first thing I'm gonna do is spray the whole thing with water. Now, a little trick I learned when you watercolor is to spray the back as well, and it will help it lay flat. We have to do this first because we want it to dry for the most part. Oh boy, I hear whining and happiness to see his buddy. Our oldest is here, and my dog loves him. He hasn't seen him in a while, so he's super excited. Oh yeah. Hi, Mama. Yeah, he's been super busy, and he's like, can I come down and it said, well, Candy's got to do a live. So he's super sweet. He works as a logger, and he cut me some wood pieces so that I can use them for my cards. So you'll see those coming up in pictures. I've got some red shimmer pigment and some berry bloom aqua pigment. This was part of our Frozen Delight release. I also got some magenta sparkle chroma mist because I wanted to do pinks and reds. Like I said, now this is going to be really basic watercoloring. I'm just going to spritz it all down. Last night, I kind of played a little bit, and I shouldn't have. I played around a lot with it instead of letting it sit. And so that's all we're going to do is we're just going to tap in the color and let the water take it over and just see what it happens, because this is a way for anyone who's not into watercoloring and you're nervous about it. This is a good way to test and see. So I'm just using the berry bloom on the bottom. I'm just going to tap it in. I'm going to let the white spaces kind of play with it this time. Okay, thank you, Penny. It's no problem. I did link the, in the description box, I did link the bundle and the Scoop of the Seasons. Both of those are affiliate links, which just means that if you do place an order using one of those links, I just get a small kickback. I did want to say that. Hi, Misty. How are you? I kind of forgot that it was this weekend. I mean, it's crazy. Fall into the holidays, crop and create. I have the bonus day. Now we're going to use this beautiful shimmer pigment. This is the red. And I'm going to go ahead and go up here. I'm just going to put it in. Oops, it kind of, I think when I heat emboss this, I didn't get all the heat embossing where I needed to. So it did go into my middle section a little bit. I'm not going to worry about it too much. If that bothers you, you could grab a paper towel and dab it up. But I'm just doing some, like I said, this is quick watercoloring. I do want my letters to be colored, so I am going to have to kind of put over it. And we're just going to let it sit. And I'm going to grab this. Is it Scoozy Jr.? Thank you, Penny. I could not remember. I knew it was one up. But yes, Scoozy Jr. was here. Was here. Yes, yes, yes. I knew it when I saw the name, but I couldn't remember. So I'm going to go ahead and just dry it a little bit, just because I'm okay. It's going to go over the edges. I'm not worried about that at all. We can have that white edge, but I think it's fun to have the color. If you look at my sample, I did go ahead and I painted the edges with the color to make it. If you keep it white, that's great, but it doesn't always work that way, especially when you're going kind of fast. So I'm just going to add a little bit extra color into this one just to darken it up in some spots. And then what I did to darken it up a little bit more is I added just a little bit of the red up in here just to give it a little bit of a shadow in it. And then if I did a little bit too much, I just grabbed a little bit more and pink and just kind of, like I said, it's going to be just fine. It's just fine. And what you can do is if you get it over the edge, you just kind of pick it up either with your paintbrush. I know I'm not super close. Or you can go ahead and use a paper towel. Yeah, I didn't know if it was Joey or if it was Emma. I just know it's one of them. Wait, which did she say? Did she say? Yes, it was Emma. It was Emma. And then I'm going to use that magenta sparkle, which has some sparkle in it. And that's where I'm going to put it. And of course, my center dried a little bit just because we were heat embossing it. I'm okay with that. I'm just going to add a little bit. And then what I did to kind of make it flow, like I said, I'm not a watercolorist. I just sprayed it again. And then I just kind of let it go. And just dabbed it. I tried not to play with it too much. And then I'm going to go ahead and we're going to move this off to the side. I think I have my little heat emboss. We're going to let this dry for a little while. And if we need to heat set it, we can. So, and then once again, I got a little bit over there. I can just move that over a little bit and then it makes it. So I'm just going to bring it up. So it's very, very quick watercoloring, but all you need is some color. And for something like this, it's fun to just add a little bit and leave it and then come back to it. I got to just set it so it doesn't run. And then I'm going to go ahead and we're going to wipe this all up. Now, usually I am not a person that leaves this stuff behind. I usually grab like a piece. Let's see if I have a piece here. Here's a piece of aqua pigment paper. Oops. I'm going to wet it down, some water, and I love to just add it when there's extra like this. Try to soak up some of it and start a background. And then I just set this aside. So that's what I'm going to do with that. We're just going to set that aside to dry and hope that it doesn't fall in my bucket of water back here. And then we're going to wipe this up and we're going to move on. So while that is drying, we are going to go ahead and I'm going to start card number 1 first, or card number 2 first, if that's okay. And then we'll go back to that bridge card because we got pretty much all of our watercoloring done. You could have, if you don't want to watercolor, you could totally color in with aqua pigment papers, or I mean with markers or colored pencils. But so we're going to move from this card and we're going to start this card. Okay. So now what I'm going to bring that up here. Got lots of fun. We got embossing powder, and this is that slide stencil. And we got some glitter glaze. Now I'm going to change up my glitter glaze. This was Emma Pink. We're going to use Alabaster. I just noticed that there is Emma Pink is in my collection, but there wasn't a ton in stock right now. So I wanted to be able to, if you wanted to, you can show, if you don't have it, what you can use. Let's get our embossing powder out of the way. We don't need that. So what we need is a piece of paper. Let's see, we got Not Your Mama's, Alabaster. I want Perfect Blend. I'm going to grab some Perfect Blend paper. And the reason I'm going to use Perfect Blend is because we're going to ink blend on it, and it blends beautifully. Move some stuff out of the way here. I'm going to go ahead and cut this down. It's a mini slimline card. Like I said, this card might be a little different. I'm going to go ahead and cut it down to about, was it about 2 inches? Yeah, about 2 inches. I'm going to go with a little bit longer, 2 1/4, just because. And then I'm going to cut this down to 6 inches to start. Actually, I'm going to do about 6 1/4 because I'm going to trim it down a little bit after we do our ink blending. But somebody asked during the live on Wednesday about the slide stencil. So here's the Frozen Treat slide stencil. There's been some others. They're in another part of my office or craft room right now. But this one was part of our release. I know Christopher said there'd be more of these coming out. This is the slideshow base stencil. So what it is if you look, there's a little notch on the top and the bottom and a hole cut out. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to slide this through, and then we're going to slide it through again. I mean, this is how I used it. And then you just can use one at a time. It's kind of like a mask, so you could go up and down and slide. I think this, I'm going to use this, actually. We're going to just, and because I'm going to use this bottom stencil, for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of tape to hold it in place because I'm going to shift this around. I want to use just this stencil, so I'm just going to tape it. And it kind of works as a mask for you. And all I'm going to do is we're going to put this down. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. And we're doing some fast ink blending. And I am using Gur from Simon Hurley and Rosy Cheeks. You guys know me. I love my Simon Hurley inks. And I'm using our number 8 brushes. Any little brush would work. And all I'm going to do is come in from the sides on the little cones. And the reason I switched to this cone is because it's going to match a little bit better with our swirl. Last night I was just kind of playing around, and I used that other one. And then I'm going to, and that this time I would just, it was getting kind of late when I was making that card up. So, and then I'm going to grab some of this Gur, and this is where you could switch it to the other cone. I mean, you could totally slide that here. I'll show you. We could totally slide this down. If you wanted this part of the cone, you could totally slide this down and you could mask it off. But I'm going to keep using the same one just because I want to kind of show you how these work, how this works. I'm going to line it back up. I'm only using one, but you could slide it up and down and use the different parts for each one of these. And then I just kind of went back and forth. I kind of at a wispy, lighter on the sides or darker on the sides, lighter in the middle. And then like, this is what it looks like. Okay, it's kind of hard to see because of the white paper. Trying to get it so you can kind of see. I did a very light. I'm going to go ahead and move it over here so that I can kind of plan my little pattern here. I'll make sure it's kind of straight there. And we'll go ahead and do this. I just think it's just super fun because you can easily make your own pattern paper. And there's been some fall ones. I know there was one for the fall. I know we had a pumpkin spice. I'm pretty sure there was a seashell one. I don't remember all of them. I haven't had a chance to get them all out and look, but I had a lot of fun playing with it last night. And then I'm going to go ahead and just line this back up. And I'm going to go ahead. I don't care about this distance so much. I mean, you can really think about it and measure it up, but I'm just using this to kind of measure up. And I can see that it's right on the back side of that. And I can measure this right here and we're good to go. And it's lined up pretty close. Like I said, definitely can take your time and measure or draw a line if you wanted to, so that you had them perfectly even. I'm not going to take the time to do that during a live because, you know, it's homemade, right? So it's okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over here. We're going to eyeball it again. Just kind of make sure they're lined up. And when we're all done, we're going to have just this little pattern. And it made a pattern fairly quickly. Last night was actually the first time I was able to even really use it. Because I've just been so busy. I haven't had a ton of time. And then what I did is I just pulled it up here and I tried to eyeball it as best I could so that I knew that it was matched up with the one below it. And I just go ahead and just did a little bit more. Now, because we're going to cut this down, I'm not going to worry about the edges so much. You could go over and do the edges. And like, I don't even need to do that part. Like you could continue, you could do it over here, but I'm going to cut another 1/2 inch off. So I think maybe we'll do that quick just because. Just going to quick eyeball it. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can always add some splatter. If you wanted to like any imperfections, and then you just slide it around. Like I said, you can slide it up and down. You have individual little, I love that you have these individual little images that you can stencil. And you really had to not mask anything off. So there we go. Look at how quick and fast that was. Make our own little pattern paper. Now, like I said, you could continue over here, but we are going to trim off a side over here. So I don't know if it's super important to have it over here because you're not going to have a lot of it. Like I said, I can do a little bit here. I moved it because I was hurrying. But I am excited to pull my other ones out and play with these a little bit more. And that is all I needed for color. So I'm going to put my pencils away and put my ink away because we're done with that. And then we have this little, look at, isn't that fun? Now you could use glitter through here. You could make them, I mean, we could have gone up here and done a little more, but like I said, we're going to cut this down. So for my sample, I did use pink lemonade. You could use some of our new, like our bubble gum that's coming. I don't have any of that yet. So I'm going to use up what I have, which I have some pink lemonade. I did, like I said, put that in my collection because it is available. And then in my original sample, I used the paper pad of the month, but I decided I want to use this Forever Your paper on this one because I really like the colors and the softness. And we just need a little piece. And so I think I'm just going to grab a little scrap of this right here. You could do either side, but I think that's just enough color for us for it. And it's a scrap. And I'm trying to find ways to use up my scraps because I put my scraps inside so you can see them. And then if you can find ways, this is a perfect way to use up our scraps. So I'm going to grab a piece of pink lemonade. I'm thinking I have to cut a piece down. So this is just a card panel, so I have to put it on a card base yet. And I'll show you that tonight too. I didn't do that last night. I'm going to go ahead and cut this down to 3 1/4 because that's what I like for my slimline card bases. If you wanted white to show on your card base, you would want to go a little skinnier. And then I'm going to go at 6 1/4 because that's what I like. Here, I will show you with a, this is a slimline card, but I can just cut this down to, and this one, it measures at 3 1/2. So I can do 3 1/2 by 6 1/4. Just cut that right off. This is one of our pre-cut. And then you've got this card panel. And you have a little bit of white. If you did not want the white, you could trim it down. Okay, but we'll go ahead and use the white, but I'm not going to do that quite yet. All right, so we got to keep this out. I'm going to put that on here, and we got to trim it down a little bit. So let's trim a little bit off this side first. And how I decide to do this is I kind of eyeball it a little bit so that the pattern was a little bit on each side. Like I said, that up spot that probably needed a piece of cone. And I like to try to go to normal measurements. When I say normal, I mean like whole number, 1/2, 2. And then I am going to cut this down to, I'm going to go just over 6. I'm going to cut that because I didn't like how that measured. And, you know, you don't have to worry about measurements terribly bad. You can look, I mean, and I actually like the distance. There's that tiny bit of pink up at the top and bottom more than I did on my original sample. So that's what I'm going to leave that at, so this is it's 6, just under 6 1/4. Like, so what is that? 6 7/8 by 2. And then for this piece, this is where you can make your choice. You could have the whole length, which we might do because I feel like my sample here, it almost feels like it's a little short. Like I need something up there and I'm not exactly sure what I need up here. So I'm going to change my pattern because I wasn't 100% happy, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to just do this. However, I noticed they're not quite the same length. So we're going to have to either cut it apart and put something there to hide it, or I need to trim this down a little bit. And since I know my paper is 6 inches, that's what we're going to do. So that made my decision for me. Just make this down to 6 inches. So then they should be the same length, because your eye will like that a little bit more when it's all the same. Yep. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to put these down. This card comes together fairly quickly because the ink blending was the hardest part, in my opinion, I guess I should say. And I'm going to go ahead and put tape on both of these. I like that because you can make my ice cream cones could have been any color, so I could match them with any pattern paper that I wanted. I'm just going to eyeball it. And then for this piece, all I really want to do is make sure that I have the same amount of space so they can overlap a little bit. And I'll show you why we're going to overlap. We can overlap them a little bit. I just kind of eyeballing so that I have the same amount of space on both sides. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is take any tape, any sided tape. This is some older tape that I actually have left over from a Create Your Own Ending event. And I'm just going to peel off, and I'm actually going to do the whole thing. And I'm going to line this up on my mat. Let me put my magnet down here so I make sure that it doesn't move. And I'm going to go ahead and use my mat, and I'm going to use one of my little grid lines, and I'm going to line that up, and I'm going to overlap. And that is what's your dog. What about your dog, Kate? I'm going to go ahead and just overlap that. And then you're not going to see that seam between there. And you can just rub your finger on it really well. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors. You could wrap this around the backside, but I'm not going to do this because I am going to add embossing powder to it. You could do glitter if you're a glitter person. Not everyone's a glitter person. So I am going to, and I need to find a piece of paper because I do not have any handy. So you said something about your dog, Kate. There you go. Oh, she's going crazy. Oh, so she probably, it's too bad. Can you take her over to it and like have her like look at it so she doesn't realize it's not crazy? Because Flush would do, oh, you guys, it was, so we had German Fest last weekend. I think I was telling you guys about that during our live. This is the Strawberry Sparkle Embossing Powder. It came with the frozen release. Look at how pretty this is. We had fireworks last weekend, and they were, oh, you know what? I didn't do. I'm going to do this just a little bit. I'm going to try not to get too much on. I forgot to do this before I took the reveal set paper off. Got a little bit of that. Anyway, the fireworks were literally across the street, and weren't sure how the dog was going to do it. We had windows open because it's been cool. I'm going to shake this up real good because there's a couple different colors. And was sitting in the front yard, had the TV on. Well, first of all, I guess there was a catastrophe up in the street, and the police were all over up, but I didn't notice that. That's hindsight. And Tom said, hey, we can see the fireworks right outside our backyard. See, isn't that pretty? Look at that. And so we put the leash on Fletch, and we tried to get him to come outside, and he wouldn't do it, which I wasn't going to force him. So we left the door open for a little bit and left his leash and his collar on him. And he kind of stood in the doorway, and then he kind of backed up. And after about a minute, we let him just stay inside, but I left the leash on him. And he just laid down. And then after a little bit, he was kind of, and we opened the door. He didn't want to come out. He came to the door. So I took the leash off of him, but left the collar on just in case he escaped. Because usually when he's in the house, he doesn't have his collar on. And he did really good. He only barked the ones that kind of went boom, went up in the air and just exploded like an LED bulb. I was so proud of him. And then he ran into the bathroom for the last minute or so. I'm sure because, you know, the finale. But he came out right away. And I got him to go outside afterwards. Now we're going to heat emboss this. I was really, really proud of him that he handled the fireworks well, because he did not have a good 4th of July. But I think the reason 4th of July affected him so is that it wasn't the town fireworks. It was the people putting off fireworks, and they were so random, you know, and it wasn't dark, and they were just boomers. Like they were just squee and boom. Then I think he didn't know what to do. So he wouldn't come out of the bathroom all night. And the next night, I was lucky to get him outside to go to the bathroom. And then look at that. Isn't that fun? We added some sparkle. You can do this with, you know, double-sided adhesive. I don't know if we need that on anymore, but I just think that's fun little sparkle that you can add. And then look at that. That almost looks like I have a piece of pattern paper, but I made it. This is a piece of pattern paper, and then we added that little sparkly ribbon in there, but it's not a ribbon because, you know, ribbon can be bulky, and I can never get ribbon straight. So we can go ahead and put this on our card base if I can find it. This card is basically done. We got to add a focal point and a sentiment. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. I'm just going to eyeball it here. And I'm going to line it up at the top, kind of even, and then the bottom, and then there we go. So there's our card base. So like I said, use that slide stencil. You can match any pattern paper, grab some glitter or some embossing powder of the same color, and you have quick and easy cards you could make. All right, so here's our card. So next we need to stamp out our images, and then of course we need our sentiments. I am going to show you, I have a video. Let's see, it's in my small one. In the SVG, it's called SVG. It's how to use them. So I've already die cut out all of my SVG files, and then I space them apart in my Cricut Joy to make these little boxes. Stamp my image down, and then I put the negative piece around so I see perfect little border, I guess would be the right word. And then all I have to do is I can put some double-sided tape in there, but this is a small enough piece. And I'm going to line this up in here. And it fits just like a puzzle piece. And then I can stamp my image. And of course it's stuck. But because I taped it down, I can stick it back in. Like I said, double-sided tape helps keep it, especially if it's got kind of a loose. But I can just kind of put it in. Hopefully I didn't. Yeah, here, let's put some double-sided tape. My ink pad is quite dry. I may need to re-ink it tonight, so I am ready to go for fall into the holidays tomorrow. All right, and then I'm just going to tap in the design. I said this is a very new stamp. I've only stamped it once last night, so it's still kind of needing to be conditioned a little bit, like most rubber stamps do. And then I can grab my one of my pokey tools and just pull it out of there. And then this is from the Scoop of the Season stamp set. So I wanted to use that because it kind of, you know, first of all, I don't think I have any of the others stamped out, but now that I've switched my cones, I could use the bottom of that other cone, but I don't have any. I don't think I have any of those stamped out yet. I do not. I do not have any of those. That was, oh, there is a flat bottom cone, I think, in our Stamp Timber set. But since that is sold out, I don't want to use it. Now, I have 2 Copic markers. That's all the coloring we're going to do. I got one Copic, E35, and I have one Olo R5.3. And literally, we're going to just do a quick little swirl of the pink. I wasn't even going to do a perfect color because this kind of reminds me of we had a shop up at the town next to us where you could go get swirl. It was vanilla ice cream with little swirls on it. And I think, to be honest with you, I grabbed my little 0.1, and that's why I just kind of blended over a little bit just to kind of feather it out so it wasn't harsh lines. And it does make it pink, but it's not as much white, but it's not super pink. Now, I stamped this numeral times, so I probably should have heat set that because when you stamp multiple times, it takes a few minutes for the paint or the ink to dry, but it was fine for me. And then for the cone, I'm just going to do some very, like I said, quick coloring here. What I've learned is you can do multiple layer coloring with one alcohol marker. I'm just going to go along the edges on both sides. And then I flop it around. And I should get my tri-blends out because they're usually easier to use during a live because they have the 3 colors right there if I want to do a Lindell blending. But all I did was I did a little bit. I left it white. I'll show you. I left it white in the front. And now I'm going to go back over the entire thing, starting where I started. And I'm going to go back and just kind of go over it again and do a little bit more wisps. And where I did it on the out, and I can go back in on the edges just a little bit. It's going to make that a little bit darker. It's going to be kind of hard to see on camera, but it is, you can see where it's darker on the edges and lighter in the middle. And I did that with just one marker. So you don't have to have a ton of markers. And then I just kind of go over it again. Like I said, very lightly. And then you can go back just right on the edges and add a little bit more of that same marker, just kind of scribble it. And that adds just a little bit of shading. And if you go down, make sure you kind of go across. You kind of want them to go across to make it more of a, and that's all you have to do. And it adds just a little bit of shading. And I only used one marker. It says light in the middle. And then we're going to go ahead and pop this up with some foam tape. I don't know. This is just random foam tape. I think I actually got this from Bruce Monroe, but I don't know. It doesn't have a name. I found some this weekend in my desk, and I'm trying to use it up. So I'm just going to use it. Any foam tape, you could leave this flat if you're not a foam tape person. And then, of course, we need our sentiment too. My friend Stacy, who owns Scrap Mania in Cedar Rapids, has the 50 foots, those towel ones. I don't even know if hers is 10. I think she's got one of these, the 50 footers. And we're just going to kind of put that down over the edge of it. And we're going to put it right here. However, we need our sentiment first. So I am going to cut it down. This is another one. Just eyeball it. Doesn't need to be perfect. I think this one is about an inch. So we're just going to do an inch. We're going to do an inch because it's going to be covered. I'm going to cover it up right here with my cone. And then I was brave and I grabbed my ink and an ink block. And this is from that the little stamp set. Which one was that called? A Scoop of Kindness. And it says, "You're my favorite flavor." And I eyeballed it and I just pushed it in and let it sit for a second and pulled it up. And I got a pretty good stamping. Add a little glue. And I'm going to go ahead and go just to the edge of the pink this time with this one. And then we're going to go ahead and add our little cone. Now, you can add some gems. I don't think I'm going to add any gems tonight. I mean, I love gems. I just don't know if I'm going to add any. And I'm just going to go ahead and add my cone. Kind of eyeball it right about here. Get my, ooh, doesn't want to peel off. There we go. I should probably save this for, hey, Susan, you're good. Oh, you're good. We're just kind of, this is our set. We're going to make we're going back to our first card, which is the more, it's easy, but the more intricate card. You can watch the replay. I used the, oh, that was the wrong, we don't want the glue there. We want we use the slide stencil to make our background. I needed to put the foam tape over there. So we'll add a little glue under there because I pulled it off. And that's what made this background right here was that slide stencil. And we're just going to add a little cone. We use some tape and some embossing powder for our little blend. And we've got this card. Now, I want a little extra bling. So like I said, on my original card here, I used some of that MS pink. But I went through and I saw what was kind of available right now. You know, there's fuchsia. It depends on the color cone you have. You could use embossing powder. You could use chroma matte. You could use anything you really wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and use this glitter glaze. This is the alabaster. I'm just going to grab a little bit of it because alabaster, even though it's white, it's kind of translucent. And I just grabbed a little bit of it. And I'm very carefully using the tip only. And let's see if I can do it up close. I'm just going to add a little bit right on the edge. And just grab a little bit more. I'm not doing the whole cone. I'm just kind of following the edges and I just kind of smeared it over. You know, just using the tip. You could use a paintbrush. I just wanted to add a little bit of fun color to the edge of my cone. That's it. And you could wipe this down and kind of smooth it over so you don't have any peaks if you want. It's all up to you and what your texture you like. See if you can see that from the side. But that's it. So that's the difference. This is card number 1. Let's wipe this off. That's all the glaze we're going to use for tonight. I like to tap mine down so that it kind of comes off the edge. Always keep my white piece because that helps it from drying out. But use your glazes. So here was our sample. Of course, I didn't put it on a card base. Like I said, if I'd put it on a card base, I just didn't get that far. And here's the one we just finished and made. We just changed it up a little bit using a different piece of paper and a different part of your slide stencil. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside to dry so we don't get any glue on that. My hearts are still drying, so let's go on now to our tunnel card or our bridge card. This is the card we're going to make next, okay? Like I said, we're going to turn this into a gift card holder. So this is a 10 by 4 1/4. Okay, so it's A2 this way, but it's 10 inches because that's what gives us that little bit of a break in the middle. And what we're going to do is we're going to score it at 2 1/4. Yes, this is one of my favorites. This is becoming one of my favorites, very, very much so. It's only the second one I've ever made, and I have my directions here somewhere. But 2 1/4, here they are. I saw someone make this on the card, and see if it's probably hard to read that. Here, I'll pull it up so later you can pause it and make a screenshot if you want. Okay. So it's 10 by 4 1/4, and I'm going to score it at 2 1/4 at each end. So I just flipped it around, 2 1/4. Okay. Fold that up and burnish the edges. I'm kind of really thinking, I don't give a lot of gift cards, but because the holidays are coming, that does not look right. Is this longer than 10 inches? I didn't cut this one off. This is the wrong cardstock. This is the right one. Told you, needs to be. See, here's the difference. So that's way too big. So you could fit this in an A2 card. Okay, now I got something on my screen. I should have looked. This one is 10 inches. So let's try that again. 2 1/4. I could tell just by looking at it that it did not look like an A2 card size. That didn't fit in an A2 card panel. 2 1/4 on each end. Fold it up a little bit. My girls are playing basketball right now. So Tom is trying to be very quiet, but I think they just did something awesome because I heard him say something. So this looks better. See the difference? This would not fit in an A2 card panel. That's fine. We can use that for something else. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab some thin score tape. Oh, thanks, Shalana. You're great. It's okay to be late. We're changing things up here a little bit. We're going to make this, and I'm just going to add a little bit of this score tape to each side. Oh, before I finish that, we need to put our piece in the middle. So I'm going to use some more of that pink lemonade, and I'm just going to cut this down to an A2 card panel, that's a little skinny, like 4 by 5 1/4, right? So we have a little bit of a layer. Okay. And that we got to put in the inside, so just a little bit of a layer. This is totally optional, especially if you use white cardstock. You could do a pattern paper if you really wanted to. It depends on where you're going to want to write your message or how you want to write your message. You can always write your message in the back. So we're going to put that down first. I almost forgot that. Okay. It's not perfectly centered, but it's close enough. Okay, I got to move my mouse here. It's giving me an. So then I'm going to pull off my release paper because this is fine. We can do this right away. We don't stamp our sentiment to the end. All right. Now you could also put a little notch right there if you wanted to for a gift card, but I don't necessarily know if it's necessary. You could also put a little piece of score tape at the bottom. That will have to be some fancy fold card, so you need to find another fold to make it A2. I will have to find it something else. I will look into that, Penny. I have an idea, actually. So that's what our pocket would be. So it's going to shut. Now, I will tell you, I kind of made up my own measurements when it came to the pattern paper. It did tell me that you could do 2 by 4 inches, but I kind of decided I wanted to layer it. So I'm going to go through and we're going to choose another piece of this Forever Yours paper. And I think this time I'm going to choose, no, I don't want that. I don't want the yellow, the yellowy orange color. I always go through my pattern papers and put the patterns all together. I'm just going to kind of, I'm going to go ahead and go with the same one I did before. Okay. Because I just like this pattern. So we're going to cut it to 2 inches by 4 inches. So I'm going to cut it to 4 inches because this is a pattern that goes this, was that horizontal? I don't even know how to say that, but it's a directional paper. So the widest has to be 4 inches. And then because it's 6 inches, I can start at my 6, go over to my 4. And actually, I already did this. So I had a piece left from before, but I will do it when I'm going to move over to the 2. And so I have now 3 pieces. And because I made one before, I have another one of these off to the side. So I have another to make another card. Plus I have this piece left that I could use. And then to layer them, I just kind of eyeballed it. And this piece isn't going to work. So this piece will. So I need, if they were 2 inches, I'm going to go over 2 1/4. Not 2 1/4, 2 1/8. So I just want the tiniest little, these might not be I just did this the wrong way. I need to do it this way. 2 1/8. May have to get another piece of paper out. Okay. I still didn't do that. Oh yeah, I did. Okay. By 4, so then it needs to be 4 1/8. Measure once, or measure twice, cut once. And then you have that perfect little layer. Okay. And then I think, like I said, I think this one is 2. Yeah. I can't tell if my fan is making a squeaking noise or if my dog is downstairs whining. Yeah, that's too short. So I always take my extra pieces of paper and I just stick them back inside so I can maybe find, look, there's a piece. There's a piece. I can always cut down a piece that I need. So I think this one is, so let's do the 4 1/4 because I want to make sure that's my long side I need. 4 1/8, 4 1/8. I can't speak. And then 2 1/8. Math is not my strong point on Friday nights. Right? And then before I put my cutter away, I need the bridge piece. Now this recommends a 1 3/4 by 3 3/4 for the bridge. And if you wanted to layer 1 5/8 and 3 3/8. I did not use this because I wanted my focal point to work. So I measured my focal point and then I did my own measurement. So you can make that bridge any size you want. So let's put this the right direction. So I need 2 1/8 and 2 1/4 by 4. I guesstimated this one. Let's see. This one is 4 1/2. Okay. So let's take our piece of paper, like our rouge paper. I can type these instructions out and put them in the fan club group too. So what did I say? 4 1/4. Like I said, I can always cut it down. Where's my heart? It's not 100% dry yet. Yeah, so I'm gonna do 4 1/2. 4 5/8. That's what I think I wanted. Yep. By, I know I measured the other one, but I'm gonna eyeball it. 2 1/4. 2 1/8. 2 1/8. 2 1/8. And then there's my layers. Gotta make sure I have my extra pattern paper put away. So I know it's a little complicated here, but we'll make it work here. Looks like this piece. And so this piece is 4, so we need 4 1/2. So I'm going to be a little bit shorter by 2. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just to make it a layer. And then look, it's just perfectly layered. Perfect. So there's not exact measurements when it comes to this part, as long as you get your measurements for whatever you like for a matting layer. Now let's get our card put together. Now we do have to do a little bit with our coloring yet here because it's not drying, but we're going to put all of this together first. Let's get our layers put on. Yes, and that's why, I mean, normally when I make a card, but I didn't want to keep getting my cutter out. That's why I tend to write them down. Or if I make a sample first, I will write them down on a scratch piece of paper so that I can see what they are. I watched this one a couple weeks ago. It came up on a reel, so I don't even remember who I saw it from. And I kind of paused it and I wrote the numbers on a sticky note so I could come home. And like I said, the biggest things are your card base and these panels. But as long as you have your card base, you can make your layer cards, pieces, layers. I don't even know how to say it. However you want. And then to eyeball it, try to match the bottom up in 2 corners and then match a corner up. And then that's how I find sometimes that I can get them kind of more perfect around the edge. And sometimes, since I can't do things straight, I will just put it on a bigger piece and cut it down. So it does come together fairly quickly, especially if you don't mat the layers. Like if you just use a 2-inch piece of paper on your, instead of layering it, you wouldn't have to worry about that. Same thing with your bridge. You wouldn't need to have a layer. You could just have that bridge piece be about as long. You want it to be about as long as your focal point. If you were going to stamp an image on here, that would be working too. See, because then, you just need it to be like that. Okay, so now before we go too far with this, I'm going to grab this. We're going to use this, and this is why I said we didn't stamp our sentiment yet. So now we're going to take this and put it in our MISTI, and I'm going to go ahead and put my magnet at the top, and I'm just going to put this where I think I want it, and this is where I could put my sentiment in here and stamp it. And I am going to use Love is Sweet, Just Like You, because my sentiment, you could hide your sentiment underneath the layer if you wanted to, but I like that it's kind of sitting right here. So I like having a small sentiment. And then if you remember, like my magnet, there's so many layers there, I have to open that up because the MISTI lid won't shut properly otherwise. I like having it stick right there. I think that's just kind of a sweet part of this card. Ooh, I thought maybe I'd end early, but I think we're going to end about on time. Okay. My desk, of course, is a mess, like always after a live. And then all I'm going to do is take this and just put a little bit of, I always like to use both wet, layers do make it more wet and dry adhesive. Layers do make it more dramatic and kind of make it look not even so much dramatic, but kind of, I want to say high end and luxurious, even though it's not like it took only a little bit of extra time, but it almost makes it look like you really, really, really put a lot of effort into it. If that makes sense. And then I just put a little bit of glue like this. We're just going to eyeball it on the back so that we have the same amount of top and bottom. And then you can open it up and, oh, I have too much glue. So I'm just going to take my little anti-static or my little towel and wipe it off. And that totally works. If you get it's sticky, you can put your anti-static powder tool on there. And so then we've got the basis of our card. Now we just need to add this on. Now, like I said, we got to do a little bit extra because I do have a little bit of coloring on the edge here. So what I'm going to do instead of using my aqua pigment paper, I'm going to go ahead and just color it. We're just going to color it around with the edge of my marker, because then I don't have to wait for it to dry. If I had been more careful, I would have probably tried to leave the border white this time, but it doesn't have to have the whiteness. And then of course I am going to do a quick heat set one more time because it is a little bit wet. Now, if you have just aqua pigments or you colored in with a marker or colored pencils, I will tell you, if you wanted to add some sparkle, the fastest way to add sparkle is to spritz it with some chroma glaze. And I like to use the ornamental gold. I'm not going to do that tonight because I do have the sparkle in a couple of these. Now it's still a little wet, so we're going to heat set this just a little bit just to dry that. And then I can turn it over, dry it, and we'll flatten it out the other way. You can also run this through your die cut machine to flatten it if you need to. Now, I will say one thing. If you notice in my watercolor, I have a harsh line right through there. If you don't like that, I am, like I said, no expert. Grab just a little bit of water and just kind of try to tone it down just a hair. You can grab a little bit more color. I did this very quickly during a live, so that's part of the reason I have such a harsh line with this red. But I can kind of just grab a little bit and kind of try to soften it a little bit and squish it around. It's not the ideal thing to do. Ideally, it would be nice if you were going to watercolor to kind of take your time, and you won't get those harsh lines. But if you use just a little bit of water and a little extra color, you can kind of make it a little bit less noticeable. Okay, it's not my dog whining. It is definitely my phone or my fan. That makes me feel better because the dog whining, he was whining a lot the other day. Okay, so we're going to heat set this quick. Let's get the rest of that little bit of liquid. And that actually softened it quite a bit. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that harsh line, it's still there a little bit, but it's not as bad as it was. And I'm happy with that. So my pinks are very close to the same. You know, we could take some more time and do some more deep coloring in it, but you know, for all intents and purposes, we really don't have to. I am going to put foam tape on the back of this and add a little bit more dimension, only because it's watercolor paper and it had a lot of water on it, and it will help it flatten out a little bit. So a little bit of fluffing is a word that my friend Leah uses when she would make things and have the edge. She'd like to fluff the edges, like curl it. She called it fluffing. I think that's kind of fun too, like my heart fluff in there. We're going to go ahead and add this in right in the middle. And see, we kind of did a better little, my mat worked. And then you could go ahead and add some gems as a final touch. Let's see what we got here. We got some red shift gems. I'll just throw those in. Grab some pink glitter. I think we'll just go ahead and we're going to add a couple up here. And add maybe one there. And 1, 2, 3. We'll add 4 and 5. That looks good to me. Don't overthink your embellishments. I always used to be one of those people, and I've gotten, it's with practice, just going with it and being happy with it. And I found that 90% of the time I'm good. If I overthink it, then I tend to just not like it at the end. So I try to just go with it and say, that's it. You can always come back and add a couple extra if you needed to later on. And like always, if you have a little extra glue, just dab it up with your cloth. And there we go, you guys. We have 2 cards tonight using our frosted Frozen Delight. At least this one we made, like I said, I changed it into making a, you could put money in here, you could put a gift card in here, you could put all sorts of things. You put a little treat in here, like for candy. I wouldn't necessarily maybe put the gems there. If you were going to put like a, you know, they have that fun dip in there, or a fruit snack, you could probably put not a fruit snack, but something like that, or not Laffy Taffy, but the long taffies, things like that. And then we have this one as well. And you can see that it's not 100% dry, but it will be nice and sparkly once all of that glitter is dry, that glitter glaze. So I thank you guys for joining me. Have a great weekend. Don't forget, those of you who are doing Fall into the Holidays tomorrow, you should have received an email. If not, maybe email orders at brutusmonroe.com. I know that, and you know, we have, that will be available on our Brutus Monroe event page. So thank you all. Have a great evening, and I will see you next week.